That radio chick Cheryl Lee here. Welcome to the Still Rocking It podcast, where we'll have music, news, reviews and interviews with some of our favourite Australian musicians and artists. Today we catch up with Australian music legend, Rose Tattoo's frontman and founding member Angry Anderson. We're going to do things slightly different this time due to two factors. One, Mr. Anderson does love a chat, over an hour in fact, and two, technology is fabulous until it's not. I won't bore you with details, but due to catastrophic hard drive failure here, there's a huge backlog of editing, so for that reason, this episode is naked and uncut. It's a long one, just Angry and I chatting on the Zoom, warts and all. He's an amazing Australian treasure, and if you want to hear all about his exploits, both musical and philanthropic, you can listen to our first podcast chat a few years ago, or if you want to watch this whole thing, go to the YouTube page, Still Rocking It, that radio chick Cheryl Lee, and see the whole chat in the Zoom room. Or else, just grab yourself a cuppa and let's get started to find out what Angry Anderson is up to now. To catch up on podcasts from other favourite artists, simply go to thatradiochick.com.au. Hello.
So,
sorry, I just had to have a quick wee break.
yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Yes, lovely. I just recently had one myself. But anyway, having said that, I was just saying to the youngster, I think I have to bite the bullet and admit that this laptop, I think, is just about ready to chuck it in.
Time for some new technology, is it?
Well, yeah, it's apart from the fact that, when some of your keypads start to go, which happened some years ago, I might add.
Well, it's done well. I think you've got your money's worth by the sound of it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, my son would know, but it's at least 15 years old.
Yeah. That is pretty ancient in the land of computers.
Yeah, so it would seem.
Yeah.
And but I'm one of those people that was brought up like, if you pay a certain amount of money for something, you expect it to last forever. Anyway.
Yeah, like the old fridges used to do. The old fridges, they outlast all of us.
One of the funny things, funny you should mention that, my brother inherited it, and because he lives in Melbourne, well, he doesn't anymore, he's passed. But anyway, having said that, it was the first real fridge that we bought because I grew up in Melbourne. And I remember Mum had a, like many people did in our street or our area, we had ice delivered, and it went into they call it an ice box. So the ice went in the top part. And, so every I'm not too sure. Maybe a week or maybe every 3 or 4 days or something. But because the water would seep down, was some sort of irrigational type situation, and it would end up in the bottom. So and Mum, like others in those days, she used to. Because as the water went down, of course, it was still cold.
Yeah.
And cold, as you know, travels down.
Mm.
But and then we got this fridge, right? It had the round corners on it.
Yes. Was it a Kelvinator?
Oh, probably, yeah, Kelvinator or a Westinghouse or something. But it had that big handle.
Yeah.
And my brother inherited it from when Mum married again and moved on, so because I love that. We all love that fridge because it was just and Mum, religiously, like women did in those days. I still do it. I still do it to this day. I clean the fridge like twice a month. I take everything out because I've got a back fridge, like a bar fridge.
Yeah.
And I take everything out and clean it inside and out so it's spotless. Yeah.
You're good. You want to come to my house?
I'd make someone a good wife,
You
which
will.
my kids have often said to me, yeah. So,
But
so where are
often,
you, by the way?
Sorry?
Where are you?
I'm in Adelaide. I was going to ask you, where are you? Are you nowhere near these fires?
No. Where I live, do you know Sydney at all?
A little.
Well, there's the northern beaches.
Yep.
I live on Beacon Hill, which is the highest physical point in the Sydney metropolitan area. And if you go directly to the coast, our beach is Curl. So there's Manly, freshwater, and then Curl.
Nice. Yeah, I was just going to say a lot of back rooms and men's sheds still have those old fridges because they just never die, do they?
No,
They're
just
like old rock and rollers.
They refuse to exchange. Even though someone said to me, I don't think she meant to be unkind. She said, "Do you ever feel like you might have overstayed your welcome?" And I said, "If I did feel that way, we wouldn't be having this conversation."
Yeah, that's right.
She was at least honest enough. She said, "Look, I'm too young to remember when you started and all that. I realised that it's nearly 50 years and you're really you're ready to retire and all that kind of stuff." And she said, "But I've read a little bit about the band." She said, "It's fascinating what I've read." And I said, "Well, like most bands, if not all bands, it's been a real journey. Like, I mean, I've been in the band, I've been the only singer in the band anyway. So more than half my life."
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I was just going to say before we start chatting about the ongoing tour at the moment and the special things coming up. What is this Monday morning business, Angry, at this time of day? This is not very rock star hours.
Well, it's funny about that. I just got to go and turn this radio off.
Okie dokie.
When I got home from yesterday, we drove home because we were in New South Wales. Because we only work Friday and Saturday these days, and it's Monday's washing day. It's also the domestics, like, because I went away for a weekend, so the kitchen's looks like a fucking bomb in it. But anyway, having said that, apart from the Saturday and possibly the Sunday morning, I made it my habit years and years and years ago when I was training and stuff, because I spent so many years of some time ago, not getting up until like lunchtime, and I thought, well, if there's going to be this seismic shift, we may as well go all the way. So I decided that I was going to make changes in the sense that I was going to have new experiences and
better health, wealth.
Well, there's that as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So apart from,
sorry, go on.
Well, apart from Friday, after the gig, there's a bit of drinking done. Saturday the same, but it's funny, because in relation to having to get up to travel home on the Sunday, usually, we sort of pretty much take it. So it's kind of Friday's our party night, and because we're all the same, we're all the same. I
can imagine. I was scared I was going to sleep through the alarm.
Anyway,
here we are.
Mine goes off at 5, And if I haven't woken up before that, for obvious reasons, if I'm that's it. But then again, I'm in bed by like 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like to go even earlier sometimes because I like to read.
What does it say? Early to bed, early to rise, mate.
Yeah,
something.
healthy, wealthy, and wise.
That's it. Very good. Now, we last spoke. Can you believe it? It's nearly 3 years ago now. So it's about time we sat down and had another chat, isn't it?
Righto. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I just asking you over your left shoulder.
Yes.
Yes. There's a series of multicolored clocks or radios.
Yeah. Well, a couple of them are radios.
Oh, okay.
The big ones are radio, and the little itty bitty ones are radio. The others are biscuit tins that look like radios, the old-fashioned radios.
Really?
Yeah, I just loved them. Plus, I felt like some biscuits.
Absolutely. I mean, bonus.
I know, right? Yeah, no, yeah. They're cute, aren't they?
They are. They're really cute. I was saying I've got my original a transistor radio. It's I've kept it all these years because it was my first real personal because transistors were the thing in those days. They were new, and obviously they were new, and because I remember having like a crystal radio, which was they were big in those days. And I had later on when I was working, I bought myself a small, like a bookcase type radio, dark brown in color,
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was run by valves, and at night, particularly at night, I could tune in. I had a wire going out the window and going up what was called the stink pole, and I'd scratched a bit of paint off and wound the aerial, so it was quite high on the roof, and especially at night, I was able to tune it very, very delicately. And I could get like any place in Australia, but I used to get like Radio Moresby, Port Moresby. I used to get, Asiatic countries.
Yeah. Well, my husband's from country Victoria. That's just the reason I asked about the fires, because we've lost 2 houses. Luckily, both of them are empty, and we nearly lost an inhabited one yesterday, inhabited by his 90-year-old mother. But he says exactly the same thing. When he was a lad, he did exactly what you did with the wire, and you could get forever. You could.
It goes to show, it's like one of those crazy things, crazy contradictions, I call them. And I remember years ago when I was doing television, and we went out. We did a couple of we did a program after midday with Ray.
Yep.
He moved on to Current Affair, and I moved on with him. And we were given this idea for a program called The Challenge. And we went out and took on seemingly impossible or extremely difficult challenges. And, because television could get things done because of the persuasion of exposure and all that kind of stuff. And we did 2 over those years. I think we did Challenge for about 6 or 7 years, and we did two challenges. One was for farmhand, and the other one was a government initiative, but to do with farming. So during the first one we did was during the drought, and we organised a train full of food and fodder for animals, etc.
Yep.
And we started in Melbourne, Victoria, and the train went it was the largest train ever assembled, and it was so long and so heavy. It took 4 diesel drivers, 2 at the front, 2 at the back, pushing, and we went all the way into Queensland to a place called Texas, which is just over the border. But anyway, having said that, I found out a lot of stuff about farming on the way, because we did a lot of research, etc. And it shows you how not always the right decisions are made. But analog phones.
Yeah.
I remember talking to a farmer, and we were out the back of bumfuck nowhere, like really, really out. It was a sheep farm, and he had an analog. Well, the only phones around in those days were analog. And when years later, we knew it was going to change to digital. And he said, like a lot of things the government do, it doesn't make any sense in the reality. He said, because analog can go through mountains.
Yeah.
So there's no loss of signal. It's a penetrative thing. It's just all pervading. So it's fabulous service everywhere in the country. Doesn't matter how far out from, because it's just that system.
Yeah.
They changed to digital, and we still to this day haven't got it right.
No. Oh, absolutely not. I work during the day normally. I'm working from home. When the internet goes down, we can't do anything, even make a phone call. Our phone's the internet. Everything we do is internet, and we just can't do a thing.
Yep. Yep.
We needed to have kept one of those old analog phones.
Well, now I actually kept a box full of them, like every phone I ever owned. And it got to, I don't know, maybe, like probably 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 phones, so like all different sizes and shapes. Like there was a flip phone, there was one about that big, like about size of 2 matchboxes. They got smaller and smaller and smaller. Now they're going back the other way. They're getting bigger. I saw a lady at the mall the other day, and she had my laptop. It was about, it'd have to be half the size. Laptop, iPad. Like that's pretty much a normal size.
Yeah.
iPad. And it would have to have been, half the space of it. It was huge, and a young Maori woman, and it was just incredible. Anyway, let's get into it.
Righto. So like you said, the band was formed in 1976. So you've got your 50th anniversary next year.
Yes.
Any big plans for celebration?
Well, it's the end of the band for a start, so I wouldn't call it a celebration, but there'll be a wonderful wake that I think will be held over a series. Well, we plan to have it over a series of days. I mean, we will tour as extensively as we can in the first half of the year. In the middle of the year, of course, we'll go to Europe for about 4, maybe 6 weeks, and do a farewell there. There's a promoter in America who's desperately trying to get some way around the ridiculous costs involved that have come about in the last, since the plague.
Yeah.
For some reason, all the prices for visas, etc., and all the paperwork's gone through the roof. So it's made it very, very difficult for us to afford to do that process. But we'll definitely do Europe. I think we're doing 5 or 6 countries from what I've heard.
Awesome.
And that's kind of a usual tour for us.
Well, I thought this one was this current one was big because, like you say, you're in the throes of it. You've worked last weekend, and I've got all your dates here. You're going everywhere, man. Including so we've got two more in Australia, and then is this right? You're going to California to Whiskey a
Oh,
Go
yeah, yeah, yes. That was supposed to be a secret. No, I don't mean in reflection to what you've said, because the news got out weeks ago, and yeah, really. So you're off the hook there. So yeah, what happened was that the guy that runs Whiskey a Go Go has been desperately trying to get us to go there. And we were going over to Florida, or I think it's out of Orlando. I'm not sure. We land in Orlando, but out of Florida, there's a thing called Monsters of Rock. It's a heavy rock
Yep,
cruise.
yep.
And through I was corrected here because I remember saying to a podcaster, I said, "Oh yeah, we're coming." This is some years ago. We're coming over to do the Monsters of Rock cruise through the Caribbean. And he said, "Wow, oh yeah, we pronounce it Caribbean." I went, "Oh yeah, well, whatever, like it." I'm from Melbourne. I say dance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Newcastle. But anyway, so I stand corrected. The Caribbean, which is far more exotic and romantic sounding. The Pirates of the Caribbean. It's
Yeah.
like all that shit. So yeah, we'll go over and do that. Anyway, he heard we were coming, and he said, and we always stay in Los Angeles for a couple of days to rehearse and to meet the crew and all that kind of stuff, And
Yep.
So he organised for us to do a couple of nights at the Whiskey before we go on this cruise.
Nice. Lucky duck.
Yeah, absolutely. We've done it. We've done the cruise a few times, and it's. I mean, I like cruises. I mean, it's just the whole romantic thing about being at sea. All that shit.
I like it too. I love cruising. Some people don't like it, but yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a great holiday. Unpack once, go everywhere, pools, spas, massage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I said, so one of the guys in Ronnie Simmons, who's playing guitar with us, he's played with when he was living in Los Angeles. He lived there for 10 years before he came back to join the band a couple of years ago. And so last time we did the ship, one of his bands that he played with was on the ship, and the bass player, who's a real ladies man, he's fancies himself as a bit like most of them do, and why not? I mean, it's a part of the experience.
Rock and roll.
He said, the great thing about man, there's only so many places they can hide.
That's true.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's like you're playing to a captive audience in a sense, but of course it goes back the other way.
You can't hide either.
Well, you can, but you just got to stay in your cabin, and it's like if it's quite a flattering story, but there was this lady who took a bit of a shine to me, and she just, no matter where I went, I bumped into her. It's like, and it was just, yeah.
Oh, have you ever done Rock the Boat here in Australia?
Yeah, we did some years ago. Well, I did as the AA band, and some really, really good players, some wonderful players on several different lineups I put together. And we were doing it. I think you do it every second year. They have most of the main acts they don't have, although they've sort of fallen into this having the same people over and over again. And the guy that does it, he won't work the tats on the cruise. He said, so after missing out, or our management put up, because our manager manages a half a dozen of big name bands, and he kept sort of saying, well, when are you going to put the tats on? And
did you misbehave?
No, certainly not. No, not these days. Well, not really, not offensively anyway. But no, for some reason he said, oh, I've had Angry do this and do that. He said, so, he can do another Angry band, And I said, no, the band, the tats are working now.
Yeah,
so that's it.
It's the band.
I don't have a sub band or a B band or a side. I love that side, that terminology on Facebook. They got my side chick, or my side guy, like on the side. It's like I don't do that.
No, so then you're back here for Rock at the Races, a few more things, and then how excitement is this? You've got the Red Hot Summer Tour with ZZ Top and George Thorogood and the Destroyers for six shows.
Yeah, actually, the good news for punters that want to see the Top and the Destroyers is they are doing shows, just the two of them. And they're doing smaller venues, and they'll happen after we've done that run. Yeah, that's a great lineup. Another one of Scotty, our manager's bands, Baby Animals, they're on it.
Living End.
Yeah. So it's a terrific lineup, but there'll be obviously race courses and like big venues, outside stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, are you sure, though, that you do want to do Rock at the Races? Because you're going to miss out on the event of the season on March the 22nd. You're going to miss out on my 60th birthday.
Bugger.
Yeah, I know. Didn't you get your people to speak to my people first?
No, well, obviously someone's kept it from me, but
someone's got to be in trouble. Someone's head's got to roll.
Some heads bottoms will be kicked.
And then after that, you've still got a few more dates. So I think you're living proof, Angry, that rock and roll is the fountain of youth.
Well, yes, I think there's whisperings or murmurings out there that one pretty unkind person said, obviously not a fan, and said, blah, blah, blah. We've only got a couple of years to wait, and then we'll never hear from him again. So I think it's got to do with I sniff the whiff of he's a socialist or a communist or a lefty, and doesn't like my politics.
Yeah, I was going to say, I reckon that sounds political.
Yes, doesn't it?
Right.
And I love the I'm not sure if it was Oscar Wilde, because he's one of my favourites for quotes, but it goes along the lines that, if you haven't offended anybody, you're not really doing anything.
Yeah, that's right. Especially these days.
Oh, well, it's so easy these days. I mean, I saw with great delight, and I take great delight in it on several different levels, and one quite seriously, intellectually serious, is that they are now going to have, pardon me, and a lot of damage has been done, but they're finally going to have, they've been forced into a position where they're going to have a public debate based on the scientific data about puberty blockers and physical mutilation of particularly girls in early puberty and early teenage years. So they're going to have this public inquiry into it, which it should have happened years ago. But I mean, there's the other thing too, which is, well, there's a lot of things that are happening which shouldn't be happening. Like quite serious issues to deal with, and a lot of them have got to deal with women, with females. And the lesser of evils, I suppose, is like allowing biological males to assume the identity of a female so they can play in female sport. Yeah, I think so. It's like assume. Okay, that's when you assume something. Having been married once, I don't assume anything when it comes to women and relationships. But and the other word, which I think is identify. Just because you identify doesn't make it real. And it's one of the things that I think, terminology, like the way terminology does change, and it to the point where they even they include modern sort of I can't remember what the word is but the words that come into the language, and for some reason it's like wellness.
Yeah.
What wellness, really? I mean, that's just health. I get health. Are you well? Thank you. Yes, I am. I hope you're well. But wellness, but now it's accepted as a real word. It's like, but one of the other, not much offends me anyway, but influences,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, fuck off. I mean, influences.
Well, I guess the thing is that anything that brings about, public debate on topics, the public debate has to be a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was going to go backwards a little bit. By the way, Angry, how long have we got? They didn't say. Are you going to give me the wind up when you need to go?
Well, I don't know. Don't these things time out?
I don't know. They might.
Zooms, I mean, don't they?
Well, we talked about the important things.
Okay.
So
which are
go back a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I don't think it's any secret that you had a bit of a rough and tumble and sometimes difficult upbringing, and at one stage.
That's so delicately put. Yes. Yeah, a bit rough and tumble's a nice way of putting it. I've had to the wonderful publishing house of Harper and Collins approached me a couple of years ago, and I wasn't ready. But said they were interested in doing my life story, so to speak, and I'm working with a wonderful young bloke as a ghostwriter. And so it's by thinking long and deeply about the past, which I'm not afraid to do anymore. I had a lot of, some years ago, I had quite a bit of therapy and sorted a lot of stuff out. And I've been able to talk to cousins and in some cases aunties or uncles, and over the last sort of 10, 15 years. And I was able to piece together, the whole, and it was, I mean, you can't try and deal with being, I'm no longer a victim of pedophilia. I am a survivor of it. And there's a real difference there, obviously. But when you go through the therapeutic process to confront that as your past, right, which is, and unfortunately what happens, and I was such a cliche case that up until I had therapy, I was carrying it around, and it was always in the back of my mind, and I sort of dealt with it with drugs and alcohol and
Self-medicated.
bad behavior. Yeah, really. Because you don't, we're not equipped to. But I mean, I am concerned that some of the methods these days, that I mean chemical, like sedation, when kids like myself are trying, in their teenage years or whatever, and they've got these sort of repressed memories, and they don't want to deal with it, or they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
One of the worst things that you can do, because, well, in my opinion, because I've been there and done it, is to try and not deal with it.
Yeah.
Through alcohol and drugs.
It just doesn't go away, does it?
No, it's not ever gonna. And I'll never be free of it. But the depression that I felt for all those years, and massive depression from time to time, where particularly in my, if it hadn't have been for rock and roll, I don't know what would have happened, because there were periods of time there where, and it wasn't anxiety, it was just massive depression, where I just could not function.
So rock and roll really did save your life.
Absolutely, yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. Because it gave me an outlet for all this anger and this sadness, because what happens, and we discussed this dynamic in at great lengths in therapy, was that there is a great sadness attached to the child, because they instinctively, we know that this is wrong, but you look around and, like my mother said to me years later, if only I'd known the extent of it, she knew there was something wrong with me. But I don't know why I didn't spell it out.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to the therapist about it, and he said, what about the fact you might have been protecting? In other words, what he suggested to me was that because my mother was the love of my life, I didn't want to cause. She was going through enough as it was,
So you were in a way protecting her.
Yeah.
Well, kids will do that for their
parents,
won't they?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It's and that's a dynamic which is starting to emerge now through psychotherapists and when I say counselling, not so much counselling, but therapists that my experience was with a psychotherapist, because he's a psychiatrist, but he doesn't want to deal with drugs. He doesn't want to treat, because psychiatry is about a mental illness like schizophrenia, or something that's like a mental condition, which is the condition of the mind.
Yep.
Whereas depression manifests itself through your behavior, but it's an emotional thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what we should be telling parents and kids and teachers, that, like, just because the kid is depressed now, the child must be told at a very, very early age, you can work with this, you can work through this, you don't have to be a victim.
Yeah, and you don't have to have it forever.
No. Yeah, it's like being an alcoholic. They're 20 years sober and they get up at every meet and say, my name's blah, blah, and I'm an alcoholic. They haven't had a drink for 20 or 30 years. But there's the propensity, or it lurks there. It's like depression. Whenever I feel, since we lost Liam, depression comes and goes. It's constant. It's just there,
You get
today,
tools to deal with
today's
it.
actually today's his birthday, so it's apart from this little um, oasis, if you like, I will busy myself around, as I do anyway most days,
Yeah.
doing something around the house. But I'll put myself to task, and center my what I like thinking, doing,
Yeah.
thinking, doing. So I'm not going to sit around and just
Allow it to take over.
yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll just swallow me up.
Yeah. Well, let's go back a little bit. I was going to talk about your very first band for just 2 seconds. Buster Brown. Buster
No,
Brown.
actually, the first band that I actually worked publicly with um, was a band called The Web.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't last very long in that band. A terrific bunch of young blokes. There was the drummer was a Maltese kid, and the bass player and the two guitar players was Italian. They because where I grew up in Melbourne, Pascoe Vale was only a couple of miles away was Brunswick, where the big Italian population was. So that was my very first band, and then they were moving in a direction musically, and I wanted to go much more into the blues. And I formed a band with some fellas and called Peace, Power, and Purity.
Oh,
Yeah, I had hair down on my elbows, and wore a fringe jacket, and
yeah.
very early 70s. And then after Peace, Power, and Purity, there was a couple of lineups of the same name. And still I wanted to go further somehow, and that's when I joined Buster.
Yeah. Well, the reason I picked up on that was because I've been researching Sunbury. I'm doing a special on Coast FM on the Sunbury Music Festival. I'm like, oh, there's Angry and Buster Brown in the first Sunbury.
Yeah.
Can you remember it?
Vaguely. Vaguely. There was a lot going on in those days.
And I do love this. Sorry, go on.
Do you love?
I love the story of how you got to be the singer in Rose Tattoo, because I think early on you wanted to be Bob Dylan and you wanted to be John Lennon, but the band already had 3, was it, or 4 guitarists? So
this was the early bands. This was pre Peace, Power, and Purity. This is between the Web and I was just there was a bunch of there was a bunch of us trying to find some sort of musical direction, and like what do we want to play, and there was all this new and exciting music coming out, like there was the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Animals, the Kinks, all those kind of bands, and so we were desperate. There's this bunch of young we were very young in our teens in those days. We were desperate to get a band together. And some of us had been at school together, tech school, and we'd met a couple of other blokes that in the area, because it soon became known who was interested in forming bands. And so there was about 6 of us for that first band. And I remember I had a guitar and an amp, tiny little amp, and couldn't play it. We were all trying to learn as quickly as we could. And anyway, we were having a band practice one time at one of the guys' places, and I said, "Look, we've got to have a singer. We've got to have a singer." And I thought, No. Okay, yeah, got to have a singer. I didn't want to be a singer,
No.
which is funny, eh?
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, we said, righto. The mother of this boy said, I tell you what, one by one, we'll go into the lounge room and sing along to a record.
Twist and shout, was it?
Yes, it was. You've done well, girl. That was the one. That was the song that I got, yeah. So at the end of that, the four of us sang, through songs, and she
Did you
said,
get
yeah,
the
well,
short straw?
yeah, she said, well, you're obviously the best, so you've got to be the singer.
So there went your guitar career.
Yeah, well, I gave the guitar to one of the other guys who was actually starting to play. I'd only owned the guitar for a few weeks,
Well,
Yeah.
it must have been meant to be, and the rest, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, and I am a great believer in that there is a design out there written in the stars that's our fate, our destiny. More to the point, our destiny. And I think some things are destined to be, and I think there's a wisdom. There's a wisdom attached to having faith. Not that it's not that sort of dogmatic faith about, well, everything is predestined, in a sense that there's some sort of control.
Yeah.
There's a spontaneity to everything that is its own reward, if you like, and it's its own reason for being, and that's why I always say, it's written in the stars, and it's a turn of phrase that I borrowed from the ancients. I remember reading a book years and years and years ago about the possible origins of our civilization, or life as we know it, and there was that phrase that just caught my eye, that it's all that has been and all that will be is written in the stars.
Now I am a bit afraid that we're going to get cut off, so I want to talk about the one other important thing, and then we can continue chat until they
cut us off.
Go into the Twitterverse. Because you guys have got a new single coming out this month.
Yes.
And you can pre-save it right now.
I think it's next week, or possibly next week, or
the week after.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. I've done my part.
Yeah.
It's another Stevie Wright cover. We covered Black Eyed Bruiser on our last album, which was the last album that we did with Mick and I as co-writing the albums, because he and I, apart from Scarred for Life, which was a co-write predominantly with Robin Riley, because he replaced Mick in the lineup. But Mick and I wrote most of the songs on Outlaws and Assault and Battery, and he and I wrote most of the songs on Blood Brothers. But that was the last album. I was desperate to get it done. I'd had a lot of the lyric content as ideas for some years, and there's a couple of tracks on it that go back to when Mick and I wrote Assault and Battery, and one of them's called Creeper, and which was I'd just been reading a lot about this new thing called serial killers, and the book that got me started on this was the Moors murderers. There was a husband and wife in England, and then there was the Sutcliffe. But then I went out and I thought, well, okay. So I went back and I read probably 3 or 4 different books on Jack the Ripper. They reckon just as a piece of trivia, they reckon they've identified the person through DNA, and that's only happened in recent months.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so there's a couple of lyric ideas that we were writing or working on back in those days that never made the cut. So all these years later, so we covered Stephen King, who's back playing bass with us for a while. He came with the idea. He came to rehearsal one day and said he'd been working on with Mick, Black Eyed Bruiser.
Yeah.
And he said, well, lyrically, it really suits the band, and so Mick had given it a tougher treatment guitar wise, and so we put it down as a demo, and Mark Opitz, who produced the album, just loved it so much. He said, let's do a version, let's record. And it came up trumps. And so I got in touch with Stevie. I said, look, we've covered, because I've always been a massive Stevie Wright fan, a massive Easy Beats fan.
Yeah.
Long before we joined Albert's, as a production and as a label. But Stevie said, I just love it. I love it. And he said, why didn't you do the middle part? And I said, well, because we wanted it to be belligerently Rose Tattoo. We wanted to draw the essence and give it our take on it. And he said, yeah, it's really cool. He said, I'm not unhappy that you left that bit out. Because what I said to him was, I said, mate, that's you. I mean, the whole thing's him. But, that middle section, the quiet part, that's Stevie reflecting.
Yeah.
All I want is, some love and understanding, because as we both know, Stevie was a very damaged human being. I mean, he'd taken a lot of damage over his life.
Yeah.
And which is another thing he and I had in common as friends. So he loved the version so much. Anyway, I told him when he'd had the track for a few weeks, and I rang him up and said, what do you think? And he says, it's amazing. I love it. And anyway, so next time we got together, I said, there's a few other songs of yours that I'd like to cover, either as the Tats or as a solo effort on my part. And Hard Road was the next one. I said, but it's almost like it was written for me. And he said, well, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Because it was written. No, he didn't write it for me, but he wrote it for what I now road warriors, the real rock and roll outlaws of. Yeah. Stevie was way, way, way at the beginning, of course, and then there was people like, that wonderful productive era of music that Albert's helped launch into the
definitely
world, and there was so we all were, we were warriors of the road. We were, tried and true, hardened, in the battlefield of pubs and that lifestyle, and that's what he meant when he said, yeah, well, it was, because it was written about all us guys that
pub bands on the road, one town to the next town to the next town, so it's called Hard Road, and it's out in February, and people get onto the Googleometer because you can pre-save it now, which is a good thing to do.
Oh, okay. So it's like available on.
Yeah, you can go onto your, platform of choice and like pre-save it, which I believe is like pre-ordering it. Yep. And then it'll just appear like magic, like voodoo into your music theme.
Right, yeah, right. Well, I fortunately, I know people who know people. So yeah, I've had not the finished product, but I think close to the finished product on my phone. Yeah, no, it's when I say the finished product, yes, it is. It's what they call mastered.
Oh, yep.
So it's the one that's got. I've got the version. I've got about 6 versions of all different stages of mixing and stuff. And I've got what will be released. And the good thing about it too is that because of, and this is the plus attached to the accessibility through the device, is that it'll be accessible to everybody.
Yeah. Now, just for the Adelaideans listening, I think it might be your second to last gig on this particular tour. Adelaideans, put this one in your diary, 24th of May. The Rosie Tats are at our Emu Hotel in Morphett Vale. So I shall see you down the front at the Emu.
Right. Now, all you've got to do is talk to Catherine, and she'll arrange all that. So come, would daughter want to come?
Danielle, I could ask her. Yeah. Now, one other question that I wanted to ask you before we do a goodbye, before we get was I also, because it reminded me when you mentioned Rob Riley, because I have a TV show here in Adelaide on our local community station, a music show, a weekly.
He lives there.
Show. Sorry?
He lives there in Adelaide.
He does, correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm in charge of the Legends series of Rider TV. And I was wondering if when you came to the EMU, you might like to spend a little bit of time with me in front of the camera and let me interview you as part of my Legends series. I've interviewed Rob and Rob and Glenn Shorrock, and
who I think is one of the greatest rock and roll players in the world.
Yeah.
Like in the world.
Oh, absolutely. We did it in his man shed. Have you seen his man shed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you got a man shed?
No. I've got a carport.
Yeah.
No, I've got a shack. There's a shack that's built onto there's it has been a bedroom actually for all the boys have been in there at one stage when they wanted to be outside the house.
Yeah.
And so there's the carport, then there's that what we call it the shack, and then there's a tool shed. But between it's now my men's shed.
Yeah.
The shack, it's got my stuff in it. It's like it's become more of a storage facility, than anything. But I think there's a lot to be said for. I remember years and years ago, I was asked to help. This is when I was doing television. I was asked to help launch the concept of the man shed, and as an Australia-wide initiative, and it was to get men together in groups, and be mentored by older men.
Yeah, the true men shed. Yeah,
and it was an effort to try and get men, because not that I think that many males need a safe place, but it was the man's shed, the man cave has always represented, that's Dad's turf, right?
Yeah.
you don't go in there unless he says, oh, come and watch TV with me, whatever. Well, it's just that's Dad's, It's where he builds an old motorcycle, or like Rob does,
Yeah.
restores an old vehicle, right? Which would be largely useless to anybody else, but it's precious to him, Dad. And it's where Dad can go and just be, like if he wants to sit around and watch football with his mates and drink beer and smoke cigarettes or cigars or whatever. And so it's kind of, yes. And what that represented to this initiative, the Man's Shed, was that place, and there was a lot of talk in those days about getting men
To talk.
recognised.
Yep.
Well, yeah,
and to get together and to talk and share and
yeah, even predominantly in the early days with just one another, with your mates, right? So, which happens now. Up until recently, I worked as a labourer for one of my very best mates. He was a plumber. He's now retired. He retired last year, but he and I always talked about stuff on the job.
yeah.
And Fridays we'd go to the pub. We'd all, because you'd knock off early, you go to the pub and have beers, and we'd go to the footy and stuff. But we were very relaxed with our inner feelings, which is why I found that most the younger blokes struggle with it the most.
Yeah.
The older blokes, by the time you get to sort of 40, most blokes that I know had no problem talking about sensitive issues, personal issues, with mates that they'd known forever.
Yeah.
And because there was a certain amount of trust, and it's a certain amount of like, well, you tell me, it doesn't go any further than this.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
like
that,
you said, that safe space.
Yeah. So when they turned around and said, "Oh, men this and men that and men," I think, "Oh, like really? Some academic's going to tell me that we don't know how to express our feelings?" And I thought, no, well, fuck, that's bullshit, because I've associated with blokes, my whole life, and so I know the way blokes operate, and most of us blokes, because of our experiences, because of we're not worried about being vulnerable with one another, because we know we'll keep one another's secrets. And that's no reflection on females or even blokes that can't keep secrets, because there's people who gossip in both genders. But so I used to think to myself, no. It's I understand what the seriousness of that problem is.
Yes.
That there are some men who don't know for one reason or another.
Yeah. Who can't or won't open up.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's always usually, when I say usually, in most cases, there's a deep-seated, deep-rooted reason. They've been betrayed.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Yeah.
That's one of the dynamics that we dealt with dealing, with physical abuse, sexual abuse, but also domestic violence, domestic abuse, is that, there was always this thing that you were trying to deal with, and men are like that. And this is where I concede the point, so to speak. I concede that silence is a man's way of dealing with something. It just doesn't say anything.
Silence can be his worst enemy.
Yes, yeah, it can. Anyway,
so Angry,
talk about Men's Shed.
Would I speak to Kat?
Yes.
Try and organise half an hour with you for the telly?
Yeah. What we could do, we would do it probably at sound check or just before sound check.
Yep, quite often do that at the Emu.
Yeah,
even in the green room.
Just what's on your list there, because there'll be 2 gigs
in Adelaide.
Well, there's always a Friday and a Saturday.
Oh, I've only got one for the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. What's on? What is it? The Saturday or the Friday?
May 24th. Let me tell you, is a. Where's May? March, April. May 24th is a Saturday.
So where's the Friday?
The would be the May the 23rd.
Yeah, but where is it on your list?
No date for that one. No venue for the 23rd as yet.
No?
But we got a bit of time.
Maybe
it's yet to be confirmed.
I find that curious.
Or maybe it's just not been put on the webpage.
Oh, I think all of them have. Oh. Yeah, it's just, we don't, for the practicality of expenses, etc. We never work just the Friday or just the Saturday. It's always the 2, and sometimes it includes a session on the Sunday.
A Sunday session.
I love, some of the Sunday sessions are pretty. We usually do a Sunday sesh down in Tasmania, and so knowing that we've got a show on the Sunday, we don't have to travel like home.
Yeah.
So it's another, like late night on the Saturday night, and you get up and because there's always been this thing with bands is that sometimes when you're just that little bit, hungover.
Worse for wear.
So you're just a little bit raggedy. Some of your best gigs.
Yeah.
No, they are. It's a common known fact with any band.
Yeah.
And particularly a Sunday, because it's early in the afternoon and it's kind of like, oh, fuck, like really. And you drag yourself there and the fucking band is on fire.
Yeah.
It just goes off like a frog in a sock. And, it's just really cool.
Just when you least expect it.
Yeah, it's just like, you're just feeling that's it. Not 100%, so maybe that's just the catalyst. Maybe I don't know, but yeah, it's a common thing with bands.
Yeah, when you're feeling a bit rough, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Bingo.
All righty, well, I'll talk to Kat about that, and fingers crossed we can have another chat for the telly.
And just mentioning Rob. What the reason Kingy's back in the band is because all the players over the years that have been the real members, there's been people that have come in through the band as a lineup to help us out at one stage or another. But there's very few.
31.
Well, yeah, I think that's a bit exaggerated, but because there are some people who played like a gig, like we needed a bass player. For some reason, whoever was playing bass was crook with the flu. We got a mate to come and fill in, right? That's it. Just do 1 gig or maybe 2 or 3 gigs. And it was just a fill-in, so. But Rob Riley and Geordie Leach will come back and play in the lineup next year, and which will be, and hopefully we might even be able to write and record some songs.
Yeah,
which would be cool.
Because you have been sort of bringing in some of the past, true members to play along the way.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's so very few. And Stephen Kingy, he did the Blood Brothers album. He did probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 tours, maybe even more. I can't remember, but back in the day when Pete was still alive. And so he did. We did a lot of work in Europe with King. He did a lot of work here too. And Geordie, of course, he took over from Rylands, so he was the longest serving bass player, and Rob was in the band for years. So yeah, it'll be a real treat to have them come back and play.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Well, it's a way of acknowledging the invaluable contribution that only several people have made, because they've written some of the best songs. Like Rob, co-wrote some of the best songs we've ever recorded on that Scarred for Life album. So, and Geordie, like I said, there's no better bass player than Geordie. He's a freak.
Yeah. Yeah, you've had some great talent along the way.
Yeah. DeMarco's, he's a freak too, but it's like he's always saying, it's like, as long as I can live up to Digger's playing. And I think DeMarco is one of the probably, he's my favourite rock and roll drummer because he plays rock and roll. He swings everything, because there's rock and there's rock and roll. And we play traditional rock and roll. It's like all of our roots and all of our influences come from the 50s.
Yes.
When rock and roll was king, when rock and roll was real rock and roll. Yeah.
Well, you've apart from having great players, you've also supported or toured with some great bands as well. Like the Gunners.
Yeah, well, we were lucky enough. That time we spent in America, we toured with two of the biggest names, which is Aerosmith, and did a lot of gigs with Aerosmith and a lot of gigs with ZZ Top. But we toured in Europe a couple of years earlier with ZZ Top when they made their comeback album, and so that's when we first met them. We were toured around with them in right extensively through Europe and Britain, and so yeah, when you get to play with people of that caliber, like ZZ Top have to be one of the greatest rock and roll bands ever.
You've had a pretty good rock and roll journey, the word.
Absolutely, yeah. And let's just get our marketing cap on now. It's been a long, hard road.
Well done. Well, I'm going to quickly congratulate you on 2006 inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame, alongside, Lobby Lloyd and also Daddy Called, The Divine Icehouse, Helen Reddy. Again, great names there. And what was the other thing I was going to say congratulations for?
I remember telling Pete, because he was dying at that stage, and I went to the hospital and I said, Pete, they've nominated us, they're going to give us an ARIA Hall of Fame award. And he says, I won't tell you exactly what he said, but he said, fuck, like, I got to die to get a fucking, I got to get a check. He said, tell them to stick it up their ass.
And I remember last time when we spoke, you were telling me how much you enjoyed working on Beyond Thunderdome. Yeah, so since we spoke last, I've been to the Monday Bash.
Oh, yeah.
I went to, Mad Max country.
We're doing Monday next year.
Are you?
Yeah.
Have you done it before?
No.
Oh, no. It's awesome.
Actually, that plumber that I was telling you about, who we became best mates on doing that movie. He was the giant.
Yeah.
6'9" tall, big fella.
Yeah.
Actually, I said to a journalist once, I was the smallest bloke on the film, and he was the biggest bloke on the film. And then I thought, no, I said, oh fuck, I wasn't the smallest. What was his name? The dwarf, who played. He sat on Paul's shoulders. He was Master, and Paul was Blaster.
Yeah.
Angelo. Yeah. Fucking, what a great bloke, Angelo. He was, geez, I tell you what, I mean, he had some amazing stories about making films and stuff,
I bet.
Because, he was in, it was either Ziegfeld's Follies or, that there was a carnival show that they made a movie out of it about the carnival troupe called Freaks. Yeah, he had some incredible stories to tell them. Some which I can't repeat.
No. Save them for the book.
No, I can't even. Well, that's not part of my story, but I mean.
So there's a Mad Max museum in Silverton, which is where Monday is held.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
No.
Well, you can when you go to Monday.
I can. Yes, I can.
They've got the car in there and all sorts.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny story, and it's a curious story because I remember saying to George at my 60th, and I said, I've met half a dozen people who've told me to my face they have one of these original cars, And George just looked at me and smiled, and he goes, "Yeah, I've had people tell me that too," because George has got all the original stuff.
Uh-huh.
And it's like with all the cars, because they smashed up from the first Mad Max to the second, and then of course Thunderdome. I mean that car that I drove in Thunderdome, that got crashed and smashed up 3 times.
Yeah. Well, they do have a few wrecks at the museum. So
I think a Bigfoot, which was my car, I think that's at that museum.
Yeah, it might be, I reckon.
It was a huge vehicle.
Yeah.
It had like tractor tires on it, and it was so much fun to drive that thing. It was just fucking amazing.
You lucky duck.
It had a big sort of fully blown, I think a Chev 454 or something with a gigantic V8 motor in it. But, I remember
walk down memory lane there.
Yeah, I was. I remember when I first got in it, and I had the guy who built it with me, and he said, "Look, it's really good in a straight line. Just don't try and turn any corners, particularly when you get up over 60k, right, or 60 mile an hour, because that had mile an hour gauges on it." And I said, "Why? What'll happen?" He says, "Because it'll fall over, because it was so far off the ground, right? These huge tractor tires." So I was all right in a straight line. You could drive it. Like it was
just don't turn. Well, we were Monday virgins. We hadn't been either. It is the best thing, out in the desert, no water, no, in the dust, camping, no showers.
Yeah.
It's the best. So I would really love to go again this year, so I might even see you down the front there as well.
Well, we'll be there next year.
2026?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's next year. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, I have taken up so much of your time.
That's okay. I've enjoyed myself.
Fabulous having a good old gas bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll see you at the Emu, if not before.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'll let you get on to your jobs.
Just get on to the lovely Catherine.
I will do. Thank you.
All right, mate. See ya.
Bye, Angry.
You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick. Thank you so much for joining me on the Still Rocking It podcast. Hope to catch you again next time. Get out when you can, support Aussie music, and I'll see you down the front.